This is what I mean. Like, we've mixed number one records. He's mixed number one records all his life on NS10s. We do use subwoofers though. And by the way, if you don't know who I am, my name's Josh, producer Josh, and I work with a number one record producer. We do platinum records, we do number one Billboard records, and I really want to share some of my knowledge. And sometimes I bring on my friend here like Adam, who also has a channel.
What's up? Yeah, I'm Adam. I make music, mostly for TV these days. I've got Netflix, Disney, Hulu, all that kind of stuff. And then produce, mix, all this stuff too. And if you like music production, mixing, recording, subscribe to Josh's channel. It's right down there. And then if you really like that stuff, check mine out too. But
awesome.
Let's get back to the questions.
We almost lined it up.
We almost did. All right, so Amarug wants to know, in pop and rock music, is the producer like the actual artist and the artist is just the face or voice of the songs and they do the branding, or is it more the other way around? Because they really don't understand what a producer does.
So honestly, the world has kind of changed a lot. Producing, it honestly used to be something completely different than what it is today. Like way back in the day, a producer was a person that kind of hired people. They didn't actually do anything to do with all of this. They would just say, hey, I have an artist. I'm going to pick this guy to engineer it. I'm going to pick this guy to do some songwriting. This guy will play strings. This guy will do whatever. They were kind of almost a managerial role.
It was like a movie producer.
It was like, yeah.
You picked the set.
It was like a movie producer, exactly.
Director.
Which is kind of funny. I think that's the parallel of what producers were. But then it evolved as the studio changed. And now it's become this thing where you have to wear all these hats. You have to know how to write songs, edit songs, mix songs, record songs, play instruments. You know, you now you have to know how to use social media. It's kind of become this whole thing that it never was from the beginning. And, you know, for me, I work with a guy that is a little more old school. I work with a guy that has, you know, platinum records, gold records. You know, he's done a lot of the stuff that you're probably hearing today. And for him, he got to see a lot of that change. You know, he kind of came up in the 90s. He did Incubus. He did Make Yourself. And that was actually his first platinum record. I think he was like 21 years old. Crazy story, you know. But for him, at that point, he was a guy that was just hired to kind of work with the band and guide them through that process that is the recording of that album, you know. And it's collaborative, you know, but they were still the band. You know, fast forward now, you have bands that write an entire song in the computer and then bring it to you and say, hey, I want to work on this. And it's kind of a different thing. And on the flip side of that, you have things where maybe I write a whole song and then give you it and then you sing on it. You know, it's...
But you're the producer.
But I'm the producer. They're the artist. You know, I think it's kind of, it can be both things. You know, I think the producer is just someone, I hate to say a tool, but you are a tool in a sense of like, you help something come to life, or maybe you brought something to the table that they helped bring to life, but ultimately you're kind of helping someone with their, you know, thing, their creative element, you know, and it's probably going to change some more, to be honest. I mean,
definitely,
you know, it's always changing, it's always evolving, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's that the producer's the ghost. You know, I mean, what's the guy that works with Taylor Swift?
Jack Antonoff?
Yeah, Jack Antonoff. He's a weird one, you know, because he's gotten so involved.
And he's writing a lot. They're top lining together.
Yeah, they're top lining. Like, I mean, you could almost say, isn't he part of the band? But the band is Taylor Swift. And I think that kind of touches on what is a musician too? What is an artist these days? Like, to me, it's very much a brand. And I think that's where, you know, someone like yourself could be confused on what it is anyways these days. In reality, you're helping a brand create a brand and establish a brand. And, you know, that's really kind of what it is. You know, you're behind the scenes, you know. What do you think?
I think a producer is just, at this moment in time at least, you're hiring someone to make sure it actually happens.
Yeah.
In a way. Like,
makes sense.
Whatever you need them to do, they either figure it out or they have someone else handle it.
Yeah.
If I've been hired to produce something and then you end up writing half the song. You end up engineering the whole thing. You end up mixing it sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you end up mastering it too, because it's just like, hey, I don't know how to put a song into the computer, and you do. And I think that's what people think a producer is now. Like, a producer is what an artist thinks it is at this point, I feel like.
You know what? That's a good, yeah.
Because it's like,
Whatever they think it is.
Someone's hiring me to produce their song.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm spending 70% of the time doing stuff that would be engineering almost.
Yeah.
Like, I'm plugging in a guitar, they're playing it, I'm recording the takes. And they're like, that's my producer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm their engineer today, but
yeah,
they don't know that.
It's different hats, different days.
Exactly.
You know? I mean, it's always changing, but it's a lot of things.
So yes. Yes and no.
El Pepe WX70J wants to know how to learn mixing. Oh, shit. So, how to learn mixing? Honestly, there's so many ways now to learn mixing. Back when I started, there wasn't, all these courses and forums and groups. And I mean, really, there was like some random forums that I have no idea what they were at this point. I mean, it was just like random people talking about recording.
Chango?
No, this was before Chango.
Pre-Chango.
Yeah, pre-Chango.
Gearspace?
Gearspace. There's also Gear... what did they change it to?
It's Gearspace now.
Oh, Gearspace.
It was Gears.
It's funny to think. I was like, what is Gearspace? So back in the day, for me to learn mixing, I always wanted to know, how do you create this larger than life sound? How do you get that pro sound? And what's funny enough, I actually think there's a simple answer and a long answer. The simple answer was learning what a limiter was, because everyone wanted to know, how do you get a song louder? Because in mixing, you have to do these things to make a song louder. And it's kind of a mastering thing turned mixing thing, because now a lot of people want to turn in something a little loud for people to kind of get a better idea on. But a lot of it was just learning, how do I get this louder? And then it was other stuff like, how do I get a better guitar tone? How do I get a better drum tone? Whatever it is. And a lot of that was just trial and error. A lot of that was me sitting down and obsessing for like weeks, basically creating new little songs every day. And I would use it to practice mixing. So I would use a different drum plugin, because I didn't have a drum set or a way to record drums. Eventually I kind of did, but it was a little bit more difficult. But I would just kind of try stuff every day and attempt to learn different ways to mix. And some of it came through collaboration. I went to a studio when I was younger to get my band recorded, and that was a big learning experience. I got to see some of the stuff that the engineer did, and I was like, okay, this gives me some ideas. And that actually got me to use Logic at first, because I tried Pro Tools, and man, as a kid, like early Pro Tools 8 LE, those little blue box things, sandbox. Yeah. It was so confusing, and it was just like hard to understand. There weren't tutorials on YouTube. I don't even know what YouTube was at that point. I mean, it was probably like...
That's like when it came out.
It was like the Angry Orange and whatever. I don't know. It was just weird stuff. But, it was just, there was a lack of resources. And I think in a way it was cool, because it really forced you to have to learn on your own, because I think mixing is something you do learn on your own a lot. It's a lot of you having to do something. And through trial and error, that's how you'll figure out these little light bulb moments. And through all those light bulb moments, you'll just kind of keep building to a point where you look back and eventually you've realized you've climbed the hill. You've climbed the mountain. You're at the top of it, and you realize, oh, wow, I actually think I know how to mix a song now. And within that, there's a lot of challenges. A big challenge is knowing when to stop. I think that's probably the biggest challenge as a mixer, is knowing when to call it done. And I'll be honest with you, like, I don't know when I learned that. I just eventually, I've hit that point where I know when to call it done.
The hard part, though, is it's not just your call. It's the artist.
It's not.
But you need to know when to say, I'm going to send this off.
Yeah, you have to know when you're going to send it. And you have to know when you think you've achieved everything you want to achieve. And there's a lot of mental fortitude in that, of knowing that you're giving them the absolute best you can. Because to me, that's how you get less mix revisions. Mm-hmm. That's how you get happier clients, return clients, is if you give them your all and you really nail it.
So your goal is 0 revisions.
My goal is as little revisions as possible. There'll always be a few, because they'll catch things that maybe I didn't think of, or maybe it's personal preference. Some people want certain things louder just by taste.
Yeah. See, I've lately, like very recently, kind of started going for like, let me get this to 90 and say, hey, this is at 90. What would take it to 100 for you?
Interesting.
And I don't mix a ton. So that's not my main line of work. But I have found that a lot of times they're like, oh, this is actually great. I just think if the guitar was a little more reverb and the snare was a little more wet, it would be perfect.
Yeah.
And then that's your only revision. That's one thing I have.
So to me,
Experienced.
to touch on that, I think that can open a big can of worms, depending on the client. Some
Right.
clients are really easy about things, but some people might view that as you didn't try, or
That's true.
or maybe they'll start to actually kind of mix it through you, and that opens this whole can of worms of they're like, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do that? And it
a little less mids on the
like it
tom.
starts to become very, you got to know when you can kind of give that. But to me, that's where I guess part of being, a mixing engineer is also learning how to, I don't know, like you're kind of your own artist in a way.
And you're managing clients.
I like to describe it as you're a director that has a certain lens and you're being hired to shoot the movie through your lens. It's like Wes Anderson. People want Wes Anderson because it looks like Wes Anderson. Much like a mixing engineer, Chris Lord-Alge. You go to him because you want that big pro sound. It's got a sound.
The sound of hits.
The sound of hits, yeah. And that's something that you'll kind of develop as a mix engineer, your style. For me, I'm a larger than life kind of mixer. Like I want things to be big. I want them to be polished. I still want energy, but I still want it to sound like this just larger than life thing. And on the other side, some people like really indie. They
Right.
like, rough sounding. They
Wet,
want,
super
wet, roomy, not big and punchy, and that's totally fine. It's pure preference. So it's a really long journey, but honestly, it'll probably never stop. You're always learning something, but as long as you're doing it and actively working towards it, it'll get easier as it goes. What else you got? Throw it at me.
Inna Yan wants to know why you can't orient speakers any direction you want. They're curious how it affects the sound. Let's say they put their Yamaha HS7 monitors on their sides. Not going to do it, obviously. Just wondering.
Why don't you give us a scientific answer?
So I'm kind of becoming an acoustics dork lately.
You're renovating your space, right?
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of learning about that kind of stuff. And the thing about sideways speakers, there are some speakers that are designed to be sideways.
Yeah.
But I would say most are not. And you want to use them vertically. It's a sound time problem. So on this speaker here, there's a tweeter and there's a woofer.
Oh, you can kind of see it here too. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're on the same axis
yeah.
on purpose because you need the sound from the top and the bottom to get to your ear at the same time. Because to put it very basically, sound moves in waves. If you have two waves that are going together, it sounds correct. The more you shift the timing of the waves, they start to cancel each other out. And if they are complete opposites, you don't hear anything. So if you are moving the orientation of the speaker sideways, now not only is it a question of how high or low are you sitting, but is the speaker pointed exactly in the right angle to where the sound from those two separate speakers is hitting your ears at the same time.
Yeah.
And if it's turned a little in or out too much, especially with two speakers. So with one speaker, you got to make sure it's hitting your ear at the right time.
Yeah.
With two speakers, now you basically have 4 points.
Yeah.
The left and right side of both speakers have to be lined up perfectly for you to have a sweet spot. Versus with this, it's basically just, is it pointed at your ears or not?
Yeah.
So that's why you don't want to turn them on their sides. There's probably like a science book explanation that could use bigger words.
Bill and I could explain it even more in depth.
Exactly. But for
That
me,
sounds like the sciencey way. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, the rock and roll answer is I have NS10s, the 80s, the sound of hits.
twice.
And-
Two
and
times in one
two
video,
times.
the sound of hits.
But they're designed, I mean, as far as I know, to be sideways. They do make a vertical version, but mine are the traditional sideways. And other manufacturers make sideways speakers. I know like Focal.
That's what I use.
Yeah, they have, but the tweeter's in the middle.
It is. So they have two speakers and then a tweeter coming underneath.
And I think that's part of their science to try and get it more in line. Funny, with the NS10, it's not like that. It's kind of like if you put your HS7s sideways. And I've had funny debates with people. Some people put the tweeter on the inside. Some people put the tweeter on the outside. To me,
I never heard a huge difference.
I was always woofer on the inside. I don't know. That's just me.
Mine were the same, I believe, but I never had a strong take.
The way the label is on the horizontal, the woofer goes in my mind, I guess. It goes on the middle. But
those are your mains.
Those are my mains. Yeah.
Wild. See, I had them as secondary, so it was almost like it didn't matter.
Yeah,
it's like if I have them sideways, then it's almost better because they sound way worse than my main
Some
speakers.
people think they sound horrible, and I'll say this: I have a speaker management system at my house. I just got the Arc Studio, which is a total game changer. It does make, I mean, the NS10s still sound like NS10s, but it definitely opened them up in a way that I haven't really heard them in a while. And then fast forward to like the studio I work at with the producer I work with. It's, you know, treated. I mean, it's like fully designed, and like it's still NS10s. We use NS10s as our main. Like, we've mixed #1 records. He's mixed #1 records all his life on NS10s. We do use subwoofers though. That's the big thing. People always talk about no bass. Put a subwoofer.
Yeah.
It's a total game changer. For me, I actually have this thing called a sub pack, which is a backpack subwoofer thing I put on my chair, because I live in an apartment style place, so I can't really be cranking subs at 2 a.m. But my speakers are sideways. It works. I mean, honestly, the thing I like about it is that I can there is a sweet spot with speakers, but for me, I kind of move in and out of that. You know, it depends on what I'm doing. For me, I like hearing a little bit more bass. I'm a bass kind of guy, so I move my head out of it a lot. And then also, I can't see sometimes. So frankly, you're not always going to be in the sweet spot, to be honest.
No.
Like, it's funny when I think about it. We go through all this time and science and math and whatever, but then in reality, I think most people said it as if you were going to be perfectly sitting up straight. Like, I don't know who. I've seen some people that have that posture. I applaud you.
I do my best.
I don't know how you can sound like that, but I know for me, I'm always in and out. I'm kind of leaning. I'm trying to work on that, but I mean, look, flip them sideways. Does it sound better? If it doesn't, then maybe turn them back. But there is a science behind. It's a little bit different positioning, because I know for me, I do play with how much they're in and out. But for me, it's more of a sound thing, because I'm trying to kind of determine how bright do I want my speakers to sound to me. Right. And that's where everyone's different. I hear bright stuff really loud. Like, I hate the highs so
you would hate vocals.
You know what?
They're so
I
shrill.
thought vocals were okay. You know what's tough for me is what are those gray ones? Oh,
is it the Atom?
Oh, well, okay. So
those are harsh.
Atoms are super harsh and bright for me.
They're not even harsh. It's like they're smeared. Like the whole high mids are just a big paint splatter.
Genelecs, that was the word I'm looking for. I had a brain fart. Genelecs are so not what my ear wants to hear. It's like the opposite of what I want to hear.
Have you mixed on them and heard how it translates?
Yeah, I did.
Did you crush it?
No, it doesn't work for me. It's
because when you said set them sideways and see if it sounds better, to me it's like you're trying to go neutral. So the thing that sounds better is probably the opposite. Like, I love...
I get what you mean.
I love bright. So I had my room set up in a very
bright... What?
I have my room in a very bright manner. Then I get a measurement mic. I see the charts, and I'm like, wow, everything's so bright, because I like it that way.
Yeah.
But then I go listen to a mix in my car, and it's super dark, because I'm compensating.
Yeah,
so then my mix doesn't sound the way I like it.
That's a referencing thing, which totally is a thing that you'll have to, test with any speakers. I have songs that I really like.
Right.
And that's always Addicted to Pain by Alter Bridge, who my boss mixed that song, recorded that. That I'll tell him forever. And it's one of the best things I've ever heard. It's such a good rock mix, the highs, the low, the mids. That's my ultimate test. I always throw it on speakers because I know that song so well by now. And funny enough, now I've used NS10 so long, I know that's the big thing. It's weird when people switch speakers all the time and they have I don't know, they try all these different things. And it's like, to me, you want to pick a set of speakers and just master those speakers. You know, referencing is cool. Like, I actually had HS5s that I liked to reference because it's funny. I'm referencing NS10s with HS5s, the same brand, whatever.
It's backwards almost.
It's backwards almost. But to me, the HS5s gave me this phone speaker range.
Yeah, they're a little weird.
I felt like it gave me a different spot that I felt like translated to what you hear on a phone, whereas somehow, this sounds horrible, but the NS10s were more full range. No one will believe that, I guarantee you, but that's me, that's what we do. I think it works.
I mean, you got sales numbers to prove it. It doesn't not work.
It doesn't not work. We've got great sounding records. The sound of hits 3 times.
I mean, there's times where I almost know what speaker someone mixed a song on.
You know what? I actually agree with you, and I think I can tell too. I think I can tell
when someone mixed a song on HS5s.
Interesting.
Because it has that weird arc.
You know what I can tell? I can tell when people mix quiet.
Yeah, because there's some harsh stuff that they don't hear when their speakers are too quiet.
You know what I've learned? This is my last tip, and then we'll end it because it's probably long by now. But my last huge tip from a record producing guy, is you kind of have to go a little loud sometimes. I'm not saying live loud, and it's fun to live loud, but there is a thing to knowing what does your mix sound like cranked up a bit. And I can tell when mixes aren't cranked because I'll hear it in my car, and the more I turn it up, the more I kind of hate it.
It's harsh.
It's harsh, it's bright, it's nasty. There's little ringing and all this stuff that's like, it wasn't figured out. The bass is either not there or it's super muddy. It's a thing.
And you're going to lose jobs over that. No, you're going to lose jobs because A&Rs are going to crank it.
Oh, absolutely.
To listen to it.
I've heard of stories where they go to studios, they play the mixes, and they just pin it on some mains. Like, they want to party it, basically.
Yeah.
And you have to know that whatever you do translates to that. And honestly, it's a great experience. I mean, I know people listen to music quiet, but if you're in your car and you love a song, you're going to crank that and you want to hear it.
Life is a highway. Yeah. I want to ride it all night long.
I actually love that song.
Great mix, too.
That's a great mix.
I've heard
you can crank it.
I've heard it said that's the best recorded Les Paul tone of all time.
It's a Les Paul? I didn't really think about it.
Banger. Anyway, so we did it.
Sideways, upways. If you guys have more questions, drop them in the comments below. I'm producer Josh. This is Adam. He has his own channel. Adam, what is it again?
Adam Sliger. It's just my name.
Oh, it is just your name. Okay.
I'm boring like that.
Well, check out his channel. I'm coming back. I've been on hiatus. This might be the second video I put out, but either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Peace out.
Peace out.